Thank you so much for inviting me. This is an incredible event, and listening to all the speakers, you all are so incredible and inspiring and true and raw, and kind of leaves me up here going, well, now what do I say? This theme of underdog resonates very, very close to me. I'm not a big person. I wasn't a big person when I was younger. Actually, I was really little. At one point, my parents really didn't think I was going to get above 4 feet, but I managed to. I shot up. I was quiet. And I am a child of immigrant parents. So I learned very, very early on in my life what exactly that meant. I was very proud, very, very proud South Asian, loved our culture. I just didn't understand why we were labeled a particular way by our neighbors, by the kids in school. Why my skin, be it, if someone goes away to LA and comes back with a gorgeous tan, they were gorgeously tanned, but I was dirty. I didn't get it. But what really dawned on me was when I was 10 years old and it started to click. What exactly was happening here? And that moment kind of defined what my journey was going to be to where I am today. My parents were very proud doctors. They wanted my sister and I, to go to private school. It was something that would have happened in India, but they wanted to be able to do it here. Worked very, very hard. They were able to afford it. So to go to this particular school in Toronto, you had to take an exam. You had to have an interview, and hopefully you got picked and you got in. And my sister was already in. So my sister, someone who I love so dearly and look up to, wanted to be at the same school that she was. So I went, did the exam, thought I did okay, and then there came the interview part. And I, walked in there, and I was applying to the junior school, and there was the junior vice principal, this elderly lady, and she seemed very, very nice. And she sat me down, and she said, "You just did really well on your exam. It was quite nice, good. And I really love the essay that you wrote. That was lovely, too." And I was like, okay, this is going well. But I have one question to ask you. You don't need to answer it now, but I want you to think about it, and then tell me what you think. Are you the right color for this school? And I sat there and I went, maybe I shouldn't have worn the red dress. But then I thought about it even more. And it took my dad about a week to understand why I didn't want to talk about that school at all. Well, when he eventually found out what it was, he was furious. Called up the headmistress. Thankfully, she was furious, and that vice principal was fired, and I was given acceptance into the following year, to grade 7. And I decided to go. But it sat with me. What did she mean by, was I the right color for this school? And as I got older, was I the right color for ... I decided that I wasn't going to let that define who I was, but I knew I was going to encounter it over and over and over again, and I still do today. The joke is sometimes everyone goes, well, where is she from? Is she Italian? Is she Greek? Is she Middle Eastern? Is she Indian? Well, I am Indian, South Asian, if you wanted to know. But I wasn't Canadian. I wasn't like everybody else. I was kind of over here, while everybody was over there. And after a while, I was like, I kind of like being over here, because sometimes stuff that comes over there isn't so much fun after all. So I'm going to be over here. And in my career, I decided I needed to stay over here as I watched what was happening over here. Sometimes it wasn't so much fun. So becoming a journalist, you knew that you're involved in an industry that is difficult. It is cutthroat. You're trying to get the best story. You're trying to be the first at everything. You want to make sure that your producers and your managers see you and you shine and you're out there. And that's what you tried to do. The only difference was I was also in an industry that was very much dominated by men, and in many cases it was dominated by a lot of white men. It was also an industry in which the color of my skin really defined me. And I kind of at one point wanted to be over here. So I worked at it a lot. I started my career at Omni Television. And it was the best place I've ever worked, and if I could, I'd be back there still. We were the community channel, which meant even though we were covering stories that were so critical and so important to the majority of the demographic that lived in our city, in our country, with Canada being a very multicultural country, we still were over here when it came to covering any stories. When it came to covering elections, we had to fight our way to even get interviews with some of the leaders, to be on the buses, to do anything. I still remember being in a scrum. And does anyone know what a scrum is? Well, you know when you're watching the news and you see the person in the and the spokesperson or so-and-so is here, and you see all these microphones in their faces? Well, all of us behind are in what's called a scrum. And everyone just squeezes really, really, really together. You get your mic in there and you're like, oh my God. Well, now little old me trying to get into a scrum, and I'm like trying to, oh my God, and I really feel like I'm over here because they're all over there, and I'm like, so what did I do? I crawled underneath and stuck my mic up and got the clip. It worked. And they're all like, what is the, but it worked. So me being over here decided to have a louder voice than those guys over here. And it started to work. And at Omni, we were making headway. It was great. We were covering stories. We were being first at things. We were getting interviews no one else was able to get because we had connections within the community. And then 9/11 hit. All of a sudden, I was brown all over again. And I was judged, and I was pointed at, and I was scrutinized, and everyone was suspicious. And you thought, okay, I'm really, 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 really over here. But we pulled back. We pushed hard. The underdog said, hey, remember, it was still okay to be over here. We'll just make sure it's safe to be over here. And the show started doing really well. I was anchoring South Asian News. It was an hour-long newscast, Monday to Friday. We only had a small group of journalists with us, about 7 of us, but we churned out a one-hour show, live show every single day. And we did really, 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 really well. We were excited. The viewers were coming in. Numbers were up. I felt like I had a spot over here. And after decades of this show going on for so long, I ended up anchoring that show for almost 8 years. They decided to cancel it. And I was back kind of over here. Maybe kind of back here. Because everyone else was doing all their stuff over here, and I was now out of a job. In an industry that I was terrified to say, if I had already been judged, if I was already over here, how do I get back over here? So I pushed hard. I called people up. I didn't look for jobs in the ads, but I called people up. I was that little person that kind of crawled underneath and stuck their mic up and said, hey, remember me over here? And what I said was, I can bring viewers in that you can't tap into because there's a thing called trust, and I have it. I have it with these communities. The underdog can help you over here. And so I got a job at Global, and it was great. And I was working, and I was anchoring, and I was doing reports. I eventually got tacked on to doing a really cool project. It was multi-market content. We were doing shows right across the country. It was amazing. I felt like I was not the underdog anymore, but I was part of this bigger group. And being over there was good, and I wasn't going to forget it, but it was so cool to be over here. Until I got called into the office by my manager. You're so good at anchoring, he said. Everyone really loves watching you. The only problem is the way you report is kind of how they did over here. It's not the way we report over here. So I became the underdog again. It was okay. I used that to push forward. Eventually went over to CTV. Eventually there got a show over there and moved on, and I'm at CBC right now. But the one thing that I realized was, and I learned from all of these speakers today, was that underdog label is only how you define it. And I'm proud that I'm a brown South Asian woman in an industry that is a difficult industry to be in, but I'm still not here, but I'm here. I'm in my spot where I want to be. And I celebrate my underdog-ness. I celebrate my perseverance and determination, and I see every single one of you, all of you have that in you, in what you want to do. So if you feel like you're that reporter that has to crawl underneath and stick their mic up, go ahead and do it. Don't let anyone say that you can't. And congratulations to all the speakers. Thank you.